In this video, we're going to be using this chair. That means we're going to be working on sitting and standing with more balance, no plopping, no falling back into the chair, and no falling out of the chair. But before we get into the sitting and standing, I want to point out something here with curtains. Where they come together right here, there's a difference. There's a darkening line, if you will, that extends from the floor up to the top. And I want to use that as a reference line. But first, let's back this chair up because there's other stuff that I need to show you that is going to prepare us for sitting and then standing up. Sitting and standing is a fairly complicated movement. So why am I starting with a more complicated movement? Well, all of you sit and stand frequently throughout the day. So if I show it to you now, it helps you with all the other stuff. And as we're working on sitting and standing, you're already starting to work on those other things. All the simpler movements, you're starting to put those together while you're in the safety zone of the chair. The safety of sitting in the chair and working on where your feet are positioned and what you're feeling there. And when you're standing, knowing that if I need to sit down, it's right there. So part of this is to work on all those simple things in this more complicated movement, but the chair is there when you need it. And it's also giving you the peace of mind with the chair there, so you're able to focus on those little things collectively a little bit better. So let's get on with this and see what this sitting and standing is all about and how to make it a little bit easier for you. So now I'm standing here in profile so you can see my body alignment, specifically of toes, knees, and shoulders. Those are going to be the important points that we talk about. And here again, this reference line behind me. So my toes are pretty much lined up with that. And now watch what happens as I start to squat. But first, what's the important part of this? Well, I want to stand with stability and balance. And I want to be able to sit with that same stability and balance without plopping back into the chair. So what's that tell you right off the bat? Where do my feet need to be? Or where does the pressure need to be in my feet? It needs to be evenly distributed. My feet need to be flat on the floor. That means I need to hold my shoulders in position to hold that pressure there when I'm standing, but also as I'm squatting down to sit into the chair. So the movement to sit into the chair is the exact same as squatting. Both of them keep that pressure evenly distributed to keep them functionally flat on the floor. That way, we maintain control. That way, when you come down, you can stop when you need to. How is that different when the pressure is in your heels, for example, when you're coming down to sit? Well, let's see. I come down, I put a little extra pressure in my heels, and I'm starting to squat down, and it's pushing me backwards. And I get to the point where I'm squatting lower and lower, the pressure is increasing in my heel, and there comes a point where that pressure is increased enough in the heel that it pushes my body backward, and I can't stop it if my posture is not flexed and my legs are strong enough to correct that quick enough. The problem is people with a restricted posture movement impairment can't do either. Their posture is too stiffened and they start to fall and they go blank. They just fall. There's that. I don't know what happened. I was squatting and then all of a sudden, boom, I fell back into the chair. Well, it's because, again, you started and you continued with that pressure in your heel. So just stop plopping into the chair. Just stop plopping on the toilet, breaking toilet seats and doing other damage. All you need to do is keep your feet flat on the floor. Just stop all that nonsense. So sitting down without plopping is keeping the pressure even in your feet and just squatting straight down to bring your fingers close to the floor. Now, what happened when I did those squats? Keeping the pressure evenly distributed in my feet, and as I squat, pay attention back here to this line, pay attention to my shoulders, knees, and toes, hold the pressure even in my feet, and just let the knees and hips flex. And the toes, knees, and shoulders line up. And my arms right here hanging, just loose, relax. They're right here in front of my knees. My fingers are then pointing straight down to the front of my toes. To come up, I'm just doing the exact same thing in reverse, holding the pressure flat in my feet. Here, I'm back on my heels a little bit. See how I'm coming away from this line. Bring my shoulders forward. Keeping this pressure even in your feet. See that little bit of difference. Now, see it again. If I bring my shoulders back just a little bit as I'm standing up, I start pushing my body back. I start to fall back. There's the reason you fall back into the chair. Your shoulders are coming up and back too far. When you're sitting down into the chair, your shoulders don't come forward enough and you push yourself back into the chair. Break the toilet seat, plopping. So now let's get the chair. Now imagine there is a low little table in front of you and there's something on it that you want to get, keeping your feet flat. I'm coming down, I'm coming down, I'm coming. Whoa. Before my hands got down there to the floor, my tush was on the chair. Wait a minute. Let's see that again. Keeping my feet flat and squatting like I want to touch the floor with my fingertips or get something off that short little table. Watch my arms, or watch my hands, my fingers. They never touched the floor. They were about that far from the floor, and my tush was already in the chair. While you were watching where my fingers were to the floor, and at the same time comparing that to where my tush touched the chair, what else happened? What else did I do? I touched my tush to the chair, and then I stood back up. Ladies, that's a very important point for you especially. How many times have you gone to use the potty and you go in there, you're not paying too much attention, you sit down and the seat is up and you splash into the water? Not very pleasant, and you get very upset when the innocent men leave the toilet seat up. Well, let's look at it from the other perspective. If you had kept the pressure in your feet evenly distributed as you were squatting, when you got down and you felt with your tush that that seat was still up, You would have been able to stop and come back up, put it down, and then sit back down on the seat. So everybody, keeping the pressure evenly distributed in your feet when you're sitting down gives you options. You can stop whenever you need to, and you'll still be stable and in control. You can continue down, or you can come back up. You have options. Options that you do not have when your shoulders are back a little bit too far and you're coming down and sitting and you plop. And did you notice my feet also moved? Let's see it again. Starting with my shoulders back a little bit further. See how they're away from that line? Now I'm coming back down and plop. I could not stop that movement if I wanted to once I reached the point of no return. The force that you plop down with is not because you're heavy or a fat belly like I have. It's because you're pushing yourself with the force. Little people, thin people break toilet seats just as much as bigger people do because they're sitting down with such force because the pressure is in their heels. So how do we sit without moving the chair? We keep our feet flat. What about the standing up part? Well, if you have natural ability, it's a piece of cake. You just one movement and you're up. No big deal, because you can get away with doing it however you want to do it as long as you have the ability to control your posture and the pressure in your feet, no matter where it's at, and have the strength to compensate for all the mistakes that you will and do make. However, with natural ability, it doesn't matter what mistakes you might make because you have the ability to correct them, and it looks just fine either way. So there's no set rule to how these movements have to be. However, when you have these restrictive postures that cause these movement impairments, there is a right and a wrong for you, for us. There's a right and a wrong with how you maintain your stability to enable yourself to learn how to start correcting these mistakes you make. So in standing up, for those with the restrictive posture movement impairment, it's best to do it in two movements. One is putting yourself back into this flat-footed squat. Second one is standing up. When you're sitting, one movement. Flat-footed squat. Standing up, two movements. Flat-footed squat is the first movement. The second is standing up. Two movements. You need to break it down into two movements to maintain control, to give yourself time to stabilize on your feet before you start doing other things. One movement at a time. So let's compare that to somebody with natural ability. They just stand up. They can even be back on their heels a little bit and correct it. They can be a little bit further forward on their toes when they come up, and they correct it. People with a restricted posture need to slow down, get this stabilized, and then stand up to be able to control it a little bit better. Wait a minute. People with natural posture just stand up in one movement. But I have SCA. 2003, I was told to start using a walker because I was falling so much and having such a problem with my movements and my stiffness. But now, natural movement, it's coming back. Yes, I used to have issues with standing and sitting in movements just like many of you were doing. But if you will just slow down a little bit and learn some of the basics, learn how to relax, learn how to use the strength you have, things will get a lot better. So, in the standing up, how do we get into the flat-footed squat? Well, we'll start it from back here. Sitting back here in the chair, just relaxing, and before you stand up, before you attempt to stand up, there are 4 things that you need to do. 4 simple little things. And those 4 little simple things are to put you in the flat-footed squat. So what are they? Let me show you it again standing up. Remember the flat-footed squat. Toes, knees, shoulders lined up. That's what we have to reproduce when we stand up. So, starting from the bottom, we need to get our toes where they need to be. First, we bring our feet closer to the chair. How far apart do they need to be? Well, that's up to you. It's up to your ability. Start with them about shoulder width apart. Closer than that is fine if you can control them, but closer together means that you need to have a little bit better balance as well. Wider apart if you need them there. The point is where they're comfortable for you during this movement. It only matters how close your feet are or how far they're apart when you're moving from one spot to the other. So, first step here, getting out of the chair, bring your feet closer to the chair, having your feet about shoulder width apart. That sets your toes. Now, you do not move your feet from that spot. You keep them there. The second part is we need to line up our knees to our toes. Push pressure down into your feet to get your tush off the chair and bring the knees forward. Now, you can see that my toes and knees are pretty much lined up according to our line there. That's 1 and 2. Now we have 3 and 4 to do. Well, we need to bring our shoulders forward in this process, but I'm not getting up out of the chair. My tuchus stayed glued to the chair. So what do we need to do to be able to get up out of the chair? Well, bringing your shoulders forward is actually the 4th part. 1, toes closer to the chair and stays there. 2, bringing your knees out over your toes. 3 is we need to make these legs strong. We need to get these leg muscles working to produce more pressure pushing down into our feet to stabilize us and to also give us the power, the strength to stand up, to support our body. So 3 is making your legs strong. But how do you do that? Well, there's a simple little thing to use. For women that have had babies, that have delivered babies the natural way, that labor push that you've never forgot, that's what you do now. That labor push is exactly what you do now to make these legs strong. And guys, since we have never gone through that labor push ourselves, the best thing that you can use as an example is you're severely constipated and you want to go badly. So you're using extra force. Sorry, but that is exactly what the labor push is and exactly what you need to do to make these legs strong. So, 1, toes. 2, knees. 3, strong push. 4, shoulders forward. This comes off the chair. Okay, now I have a question for you. What brought my butt up off the chair? Well, I'm sitting in that chair and then I bring my shoulders forward. That's what took us off the chair. My shoulders coming forward only when my legs are working strong and pushing down into the floor, supporting my body. And then this counterbalancing of the body works. Shoulders are counterbalanced by the big behind. Simple as that. Again, if you're just reaching for something off the floor, you're not pushing that pressure into your feet like you are when you're trying to get up. You're just coming forward to pick something up. But you are still using your feet and your legs in that. You're not just letting them go limp. You're still holding pressure into your feet to stabilize your body to come down here and get whatever it is you need. If you don't, that's when you fall out of the chair when you're trying to reach for something. That's why many of you end up on the floor, holding onto the chair and tipping it over onto you because you stopped or you didn't use your feet when you're sitting. Everything we do with movement related, whether we're sitting or standing, it's using our feet, it's putting pressure into our feet to be able to do those things that we want to do. So those are the basics of sitting and standing. Keeping your feet flat, all the way down, all the way up. Relaxing your posture enough so it can move where it needs to move. So the body parts can move where they need to move. So your leg muscles can relax enough so they can cooperatively work together instead of fighting each other. One set of muscles contracts, the other relaxes at exactly the same time. So for those of you who are shaking as you're coming down, for those of you that have that jerky movement, problem is not your condition or disorder up here in your head. It's these muscles are still too tight. They're fighting. Get them to relax. And the way you get them to relax is learning how to stay stable on your feet, learning how to relax into that stability in your feet. That's how you reduce that rigidity, the stiffness, the jerkiness, and the shaking of your muscles. The shaking of your muscles tells you two things. One, your posture is too rigid. Two, your legs are weaker than you thought they were. So you have work to do on both of those. How do I stabilize that posture more so I can start to relax some of that rigidity out of my posture, and that will allow me to use the strength I have to do this better, and that will also give me the ability to start practicing my squatting to be able to do all of this better. It all comes back to a lot of common sense on why you're having the problems that you're having and how to improve on those problems. So the movements of sitting down into a chair and then standing up from a chair are not filled with all of the bright mishaps and accidents that many of you experience. I used to do the same thing, but you've seen me doing so much better. But it's taken me a lot of time, work, and practice that you now have to do for yourself to be able to have better movements and a better life. You can do it.